Do you know the value of a click? Maybe. How about a view or an impression from an influencer or your own social media content? I'm not so sure. You should really check out my friends at Eisenberg. They've got this social index, and social index gives you earned media value of all your KPIs across all the main social platforms, including TikTok. And these values are updated every day. You don't want to be stuck in 2020, do you? Over 1,000 companies have used the social index to understand the ROI of their campaigns. And if you work with a social agency, you should really ask them to incorporate earned media values into your reports. Get your earned media value for social content. Visit earnedmediavalues.com. Again, that's earnedmediavalues.com.
For all of us, it's about predicting where the consumer is going and getting half of it right.
One of the things we want to do is create ads that don't suck.
Embracing change creates great possibility.
I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Today. Today on the show, I've got Dan Frohnen. He's the Chief Marketing Officer at Sendoso. Sendoso is a leading sending platform. It helps companies stand out by giving them new ways to engage with their customers through the buyer's journey. And on the show today, we talk about Dan's journey from music industry, playing a band in his early days, to music publishing, and ultimately to the tech world, where he is now leading Sendoso's marketing efforts. We also talk about what the connected environment looks like. How do you deliver a better experience today for your customers, your employees, etc.? Also, the current state of ABM, or account-based marketing, and much more. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Dan Frohnen. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. I'm super excited to be here today.
Before we start talking about business, I have to ask you about your career transition. You were in the music industry, and now you're in the tech industry. How did that happen?
It's an interesting journey for sure. I grew up playing in bands. I was the guy that was in the garage playing music way too loud and making my parents mad. And, that translated into a passion for going and studying music in college and then getting into the music publishing industry. And I did that for about 10 years. And as I was in that industry, I developed an affinity towards marketing. And a lot of what was happening in marketing at the time was going, technology forward through marketing automation, through intent data, through email marketing, social, you name it, right? So I started doing a lot of business with a lot of different startup tech vendors, and I just realized, this is what I really want to be doing, and I got a passion for that, and took my marketing passion and my technology passion and jumped into tech, and it's been an amazing journey ever since.
What is Sendoso? Tell listeners what it is, like what you guys do.
At the crux of what we do is we help companies to put physical touch points in an otherwise very digital world. And we do that via our sending platform, which allows companies to do direct mail, gifting, cameos, virtual experiences at scale in the technology that they're already using or on our platform.
So you're enabling marketing. You're also the chief marketer of the company. There's a lot of marketing overlap there. What's your role like as CMO of Sendoso?
Yeah, it's a ton of fun because anytime you're heading up marketing for a company that's selling to marketing, it's almost like a cheat code because you just know yourself. So, really my role, I define it as two things. It's the creator of demand and brand, and the supporter of closers, right? And on the demand and brand side, it's all about getting Sendoso to be as common in your language as any other piece of technology, whether that's email, phone, CRM, and then making sure that we're seen anywhere and everywhere that makes sense for our audiences. And then internally making sure that I am just wrapped around the sales and customer success teams and making sure that they have anything and everything that they need to be successful to create more and more customers that are happy and healthy.
I want to dimensionalize a little bit too, like the service that you guys are providing, because you serve a lot of different, it seems like you serve a lot of different potential stakeholders, because you've got the, like you just said, the demand for brand. So you got the marketing side of the equation that might be interfacing with Sendoso and using your services and technology. And then you got the closers, the sales folks that are doing the same thing. You've also got, I would imagine like HR is a component too, like with, especially in this virtual environment with employee onboarding, making sure people feel engaged with swag at a minimum, but maybe, more higher level engagement level things too. But, you're essentially making like the age old, like I want to go send a book to somebody, a more off the shelf integrated into my sales or marketing process or onboarding process. You're making that easy for me. Is that the best way to think about the service that you're providing?
100%, right? We allow that direct mail, that gifting, that whole art of, giving someone something as easy as creating the play that you want to run, connecting, and then hitting the click button, right? And we take a lot of that heavy lifting out of it.
That makes sense. And last time we talked, you talked about super senders. I love that title, especially for like, I think it's your most sophisticated or your best users, if you will, of the platform. But like, tell me, what is a super sender and how do you like engage that community of folks?
So the super senders, as you alluded to, are our best senders, and they're the ones that are leveraging us in the most creative ways, the most unique ways, and quite frankly, the most ingrained ways within their companies. Because as we talked about, there's a marketing use case for supporting sellers and SDRs and generating pipeline and running account-based marketing. But then there's also a sales use case for sales using this directly to surprise and delight and interact with their prospects. And then CS teams using it to maintain relationships with their customers, and then even HR, right? So it's really these super senders are the ones that are on the bleeding edge of using the Sendoso technology through integrations with all of their teams internally, and really leading the charge on how this is done and how it's done in the best ways. And it's really just this amazing community of marketers and some sellers and some CX professionals that just get together and really trade secrets with each other. And we just help to facilitate the conversation.
Well, I can only imagine like this past year with the pandemic, the work from home. I mean, sales processes have gotten upended in many industries that weren't already kind of working in a virtual environment. Not to mention the onboarding for new employees is completely changed in a virtual environment for many companies that weren't having to deal with that in the past. How do you think about connecting folks together, whether it's like pipeline prospects and salespeople or employees? How do you think about this connection in an environment where we're all virtual that we live in right now?
It's a pretty complex question, really, because if you think about the connection, it's multifaceted. It's connection through technology, right? So every company has a technology stack that they're leveraging. But anyone who's been in marketing technology or sales technology knows that just because you buy the technology does not mean that you're using it correctly or that you're looking at a customer journey end to end. So the connection part of it is about that and making sure your customer and prospect and where they are and what the unique touch points are. And then the other piece to it is really the creative element of that connection, which is how are you creatively getting down to the level of the customer or the prospect and being as personal and connected as possible, whether that's a one-to-one approach, which obviously that's super expensive to do and not for everyone, and then one to few and one to many. And we really the connection is all of that put together into a process and a strategy.
Any examples come to mind, like how people are using Sendoso or the platform to foster those better connections? Anything come to mind that you could share?
Yeah. So, I can give you an example fresh off the press. So one of our SDRs reached out to someone at Cisco, and she included a personalized cameo video in this outreach. And the person from Cisco was so impressed with the outreach and the personalization that she actually went on to LinkedIn publicly and said, hey, instead of shaming an SDR for doing some bad outreach, I want to showcase some good outreach today. So, That's just one example of finding out what her favorite celebrity is, having the celebrity speak to why this SDR is trying to get a hold of him in the first place, and breaking through that noise in a really highly personal way that can actually scale through a sending platform. Like, you could do that more than once, and you could do that with multiple people.
That's a really cool example, because how many times have I logged into Facebook to see some mean intentions of copy and pasting, either a LinkedIn outreach or an email that they received from an SDR. And gosh, I can only imagine if I was an SDR, like, oh, please, just may I never be that person that gets shamed on LinkedIn. Because then the hordes come out, right? They start liking it and commenting on how their bad experience.
You get put on blast and make a name for yourself in a bad way.
Exactly. But that's a really cool example. I mean, like, how engagement should work and turning the conversation around to the positive side. And a cameo from a celebrity never hurts.
Yeah, it never hurts at all. Like, I remember the first time I got one, I was just blown away.
It's kind of crazy that they even do it, right? Like, I get it. Well, we're talking about sales in this respect and SDRs, and in the B2B world, it seems like the last 5 or more years, the buzzword for B2B marketers has been account-based marketing, or ABM. When you're at kind of the critical juncture in the ABM process, like keeping the conversation going and progressing to the next step in a pipeline, how do you think about ABM? Like, what's the current state of ABM these days?
It's been fascinating to watch. I mean, it's evolved quite a bit. And I think when I first got into ABM and that strategy, it really was a marketing approach. And that was fundamentally flawed, because it was marketing trying to basically do segmentation and a viewpoint of the market, but not really knowing how to orchestrate that with the sales organization and the CS organization to have a holistic approach. So, the evolution now has really become it's a business strategy, and it's your go-to-market strategy. And it's really account-based at this point. And a lot of things have happened as a result of that. I think one is that when you're able to operationalize throughout your entire company, you kind of myth bust the fact that ABM is one-to-one. It can be one to few, it can be one to many. And you start to see that the coordination, when you just have that singular view and holistic view of the universe, it actually makes the campaigns and the creativity and the connection a lot easier to achieve, because you just all know what you're trying to connect with in the first place.
That makes a lot of sense. Like, I really like your myth busting concept, because I hadn't really thought about the fact that you can aggregate to one to few or one to many, even within the ABM construct. And your notion that, like, it moved from like something that we organize around to like how we go to market. This is just the game now. And if you're not doing it this way, you might be at a disadvantage. Is there any, I'm just curious if there's any examples of how, like, you've seen ABM in practice work well, or examples of how you move people through the pipe.
The things that I continue to see work really well is when you know where an account and the people in the account are in their journey. So I think a big part of the account-based approach is knowing what their intent is in the market. Are they showing signals that they are in like a research phase? Are they looking at pricing? Are they in a buying phase? Is so powerful, because then it allows you to actually prioritize in a whole different way and show them different intent signals from you. Like, if you know that they're in market and you know that they're researching certain topics, you don't have to beat around the bush, and you don't have to do the same sort of like guessing game that they need to be educated in a certain way. Like, you may know that they're researching ABM, so you should go and talk to them about ABM, and you should, be able to look at some data to see what kind of technology their company might be using, and you can be relevant there. And then you can use your creative energy to, go get the meeting, whether that's, a creative outbound strategy, whether that's building a custom landing page and getting something Sendoso'd over to, what you believe might be the buying committee. Like, you can really tackle it that way, knowing where they are in the journey.
What are you looking ahead? We're 2021. We still aren't all vaccinated yet. I'm assuming your business has probably done really, really well in the last year. I'm assuming that it's probably going to potentially continue. But like, what trends do you see for 2021 as you think about your business and where you fit into the customers that you're working with?
The big trends that we're seeing is that maybe there's some light at the end of the tunnel, right? We know that, vaccinations are happening, but when do we actually get back to offices? When do we get back to physical events? When do we get back to business travel at scale? I think that's really anyone's guess right now. And, for us, it's all about how do we help companies have that extra oomph outside of just this digital hyper pronounced world that we're in. And that really comes back to that connectivity piece, that business to human approach, and helping companies to connect with their audiences beyond just a transactional one and into more of a, how can I help you? How can this be a deeper relationship? How can we, develop a business relationship that stands the test of COVID, really, if you think about it. So where we see things going is a lot more value is being placed on brands that are taking that extra time and finding the more unique ways to engage their prospects and their customers versus just kind of, spraying them with digital.
You said something earlier in the conversation, I think is probably underscored in how you guys come to market too. And it's the notion of the creativity, whether it's a gift or the touch point that you choose to execute against. When you make it easy, like to fulfill on whatever it is you're trying to do, then the creativity can take over to like figure out how to do that in the most impactful way. Would you agree with that as well?
100%.
Coming off the holiday period, I get some gifts sent, and I'm pretty sure one was sent through Sendoso from one of the people I've interacted with, and it was great. It was a little candies gift, and it came along actually with a gift card to give to a charity. And it was like this really nice thing is like, yeah, celebrate the holidays. Here's something sweet to enjoy, but like here's a way that you can give back to the community. And I know people have done that before, but I hadn't really experienced it firsthand before. So it was a nice 1-2 punch on the creativity.
Yeah, no, we've definitely that stuff really does well, and I think we've seen a huge uptick in charitable giving and during these times for sure, which is great. I even do the same thing. I mean, if someone is trying to get a meeting on my calendar, I just say, send me a link to the charity that I can donate to versus giving me the e-gift, because I'd rather help someone, right?
Yeah. Well, in some ways, like, I mean, there's a lot of regulations too around gifting, especially like government as one example, right? And this gives an opportunity that you can help others still achieve the goal and get over that barrier that might be there or not. So, well, I want to switch gears a little bit. We love to get to know the person behind the microphone. We already know you played in a band. I won't make you sing, although I'm thinking about it, or play an instrument. Maybe you're not the lead singer. I don't know. But one of my favorite questions to ask is there an experience of your past that defines or makes up who you are today?
And that's a tough one. So I moved around a ton as a kid. So we're talking a different elementary school from 2nd through 5th, and then 2 middle schools and 2 high schools. So quite a bit of like getting pulled out of a class, having to remake friends, all that fun stuff. And actually that fundamentally defined me, because originally it made me shy. But as an adult, when you kind of figure out who you are and what your place is in this world, it's actually made me like pretty agile and able to pretty much say hi to anyone and get the conversation going and get the job done. So that's probably my defining one for sure.
You don't have to share if you don't want to, but I was just curious, did you have were you a military family or?
No, just divorced parents, and my mom just liked to move.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, no military family, but I can relate from what I've heard from my military.
Yeah, I've heard something similar, and it was I can't remember if it was a military family or a foreign service type family, but there was planned moves like every couple of years. So it could be hard on social life, especially as a middle school and high school. That's 2 tough time periods, I think, to shift. Well, what advice would you give your younger self if you're starting all over again?
the biggest advice that I would give my younger self would be to get out and network and do thought leadership a lot earlier than I did. I remember a lot of mentors would say that was like how you crack the code, is get out and network and just write about your experiences and talk to as many people as possible. And it really is, like, the second I started doing that and putting it out there, it's just one of those things where the one activity breeds another activity to another activity, and it just kind of creates its own flywheel.
Well, the next thing you know, you're on a podcast, like.
Exactly.
Well, what's been this is kind of a silly question, but I like asking it, build my shopping list. What's been the most impactful purchase that you've made, say, of $100 or less in the last 6 to 12 months?
So this was not a purchase. It was a fix. So I have 2 young boys and they both have bikes, and I never made the time to go bike ride with them. And COVID made it so that I pulled out the bike and took it down to the bike shop and got it fixed for $100.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. We actually, it's funny enough, like, did something very similar at the start of the pandemic, because it's like, you don't have anything to do. Like, you can't go places. And my wife and I, we have a 13-year-old daughter, and she had a great working bike, but ours, we needed to dust off and kind of get tuned up, and we did the same thing. And it's been a really good money spent.
Yeah, hopefully continue to do it even when you don't have to anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly. 2 last questions for you. Stepping back from the day job that you have, are there brands or companies or causes that you follow or you think other people should take notice of?
I think a couple things, and they're really more local causes, like especially if you have kids that are in elementary school. Like, we follow the boosters pretty closely here, and like right now we're participating in making kits for homeless people. There's a rise of homelessness right now, and just getting your kids involved in creating these kits and letting them know that there's people that aren't as fortunate as you, and being able to do that. And then the second thing that's become kind of near and dear to my heart recently is donating to our local food bank, because again, it goes to the kind of the crux of the fact that there's a lot of poverty that's really below the surface right now, with a lot of the service industries that have kind of been coming in and out. So those are probably the 2 things that I'm pretty passionate about right now.
I love those ideas. We've gotten involved in, like, to your point about the schools, the local schools here have food pantries for that exact thing. Food insecurity with kids. I should have known that it was a big issue, but it's taken the pandemic to really bring a spotlight to it. Well, last question for you. What's the largest opportunity or threat you think marketers are facing today?
That's a pretty big question. I think the biggest opportunity that marketers have right now is that there's never been a time in history that at least I know of where buyers have so much information at their fingertips that they go out and do like 60, 70, 80% of their research before they even come to you for a conversation or a purchase decision. So the biggest opportunity right now for marketers is to really double down on, your knowledge of the entire customer life cycle and some product-led growth fundamentals around that, because I think, and then this kind of dovetails into the threat. And I think it's a threat for marketers, sellers, and kind of CSMs in a way, is that as those kind of walls are coming down, it's anyone's guess who's going to be the one who's going to be needed to service these customers. I'm biased, and I think it's marketing, because you go out and create the demand and brand. But, as the walls come down and the process changes, that's a big threat for everyone, is that you have to just be nimble and, learn new methodologies and ways of doing things.
Dan, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, this was a blast. Thanks for having me.
Hi, it's Alan again. Marketing Today was created and produced by me, with support from my team and podcast editors, sound engineers, and writers at Share Your Genius. Find them at shareyourgenius.com. If you're new to Marketing Today, please feel free to write us a review on iTunes or your favorite listening platform. Don't forget to subscribe on marketingtodaypodcast.com and tell your friends and colleagues about the show. I love to hear from listeners. You can contact me on marketingtodaypodcast.com. There, you will also find complete show notes, links to what was discussed in the episode today, and you can search our archives. I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Today.